Welcome to Next Gen Professional Associate once again. In today's class, we shall continue with our last class on activity-based costing. So activity-based costing will move us to, maybe tonight, we'll move to profit analysis, right, which is CVP. We look at single product, we look at multiple products, and as well as looking at uh, some some questions as well, right? I want to solve 4 questions in CVP, two from single product, two from multiple product. By then I have 6 questions for you under what? CVP. 6 questions. I will solve 4 questions, you solve two, and that is how we do it. Now, in today's class, let's quickly complete this question, right? So don't forget that the question, let's quickly go back to the question. That is why I said, please always pay attention to details, right? It's very what? It's very important. Now, the question says that, what was the question? We are here, right? Determine the cost driver rate using the activity-based costing. Now, this is the cost driver rate, right? We've started it already. This is the cost driver rate, right? Right? This is the cost driver rate, this amount here, right? We've started it already. So now, the next one we've calculated for material handling, right? So the next thing we need to calculate is overhead. You can see that your overhead cost is your cost pool, right? This is your cost pool, and this is the what? Cost driver, right? Now, don't forget that it is based on labor hours, right? Now, let's quickly check. Let's quickly check. You can see the direct labor hours per what? Per unit. I hope we've done that before, but let me quickly. You can see that it is based on direct labor hours per what? Per unit. You can see that it is based on what? Direct labor hours per what? Per unit, which means that you will use 4 hours to produce what? 1 unit. Now, when you want to produce 24,000 units, how many hours will you use? It will be 4 times 24,000 units. We give you the total numbers of hours that you use in producing 24,000 what? Unit. The same thing applicable to this. So we need to add these two together. You multiply 4 times 24,000. Please capture that. 5 times 24,000, right? That one will give us what? The labor hours for each of the what? For each of the products. Don't forget that there is overhead cost of 864, right? 864. So we have 864,000. I believe we've done that before, but okay, I think we've not. Okay, we've not. We've done that before, but what is this? Overhead, right? Overhead, overhead, right? So what is the please give me the cost. 5 6 words. What is the cost pool? Class, what is the cost pool? 5 6 words. Balogun, you have the material.
864.
Okay, thank you. 5 6 words.
864.
Okay, 5 6 8 6 4. Right? Right? Okay. Now, the cost, the cost pool, don't forget that it is based on labor hours. Is that not so? Now they will use 4 units per hour to produce one unit. Is that not so? 4 units per hour, right? Per hour. So 4 units per hour. Let me just use it like this, right? Times how many numbers of units did they produce? How many numbers of units, class? The first one is how many numbers of units, class? How many numbers of units is your network? If you can't see my screen, is your network, please. Okay, how many numbers of units? Hello? Olufunmilayo.
Hello, that's 24,000 units.
Okay, but can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, is your network, please? Just check your network. Okay, 24,000 units, right? 24,000 units, right? Okay, plus. So how many units did they use to produce how many hours did they use to produce 1 unit? I think is 8, right? Is it not 8? How many units? How many units did they use to produce 1 unit? How many hours did they use to produce 1 unit, class? Hello?
Five times 24 units.
Okay. We have, it is not 5, oh, right? You know how we call figures,
Sorry,
right?
five
5
five
what?
units per hour.
5 units per hour times, what is the numbers of units produced? 24,000, right? 24,000, right? 24,000 units. So when you multiply 5 units times 5 units per hour times 24,000 units, right? 5 units per hour means that you will use 5 units to produce 1 unit. You will use you will use what? It is 5 hours per unit. It's supposed to be 5 hours per unit, not 5 units per hour. 5 hours, sorry, 5 hours per unit, right? So this should be 5 hours. Sorry about that. 5 hours, 5 hours per what? Per unit, right? 5 hours per unit. So please, multiply. Give me final figure, right? You don't forget that you divide, right? So what is your final answer? I just need final answer here, please, quickly before we move ahead.
Excuse me, sir.
I'm with
No?
you.
Yeah, that thing should be 8 6 for not 5 6. The
What
overhead,
is what is 86?
the overhead costs
What is the overhead cost? The
is
overhead.
864,000.
Okay, let's check.
Yeah, 864,000.
Is it 64 now? Fumilayo, why did you give me that figure now? 864, right?
Yeah.
864,000. So what do we have here? Class. Quickly, give me figure quickly so that we can move ahead, please. Please put down your hands, Prince. Figure.
Total is equal to 4.
I don't know. We don't call figure like that. Is it the first time of joining us?
Yes,
Yeah?
sir.
Okay, that's
Yes,
why.
sir.
I see. Don't worry. We don't call figure like that, right? Right? This is PM class, right? So that you learn it now, so that it will master you when you get your examination hall, right? You are using naira to divide hours, right? You are using naira to divide hours, right? So you said, what is the total? What is your rate? What do you have? What is your rate per hour? What is your rate? Kudus, what is your rate per hour?
4 naira per hour.
Thank you. It is 4 naira per hour, and that is how we call figure, right? You're welcome, Kudus. So it is what? 4 naira, right? 4 naira per what? Per hour, right? And that is how we roll, right? Per hour. Class. So now, class, this is what you get, right? When you are to determine the OAR for the activity-based course. Don't forget that your setup, your special part, customer invoice and all that, these are your what? These are your overhead, right? Now, if you get 400 naira per setup, class, how many setup do you have for standard? You need to multiply it by the numbers of setup, because activity-based costing want to know the total cost, want to know the each cost of the setup of the what? Of the product. Class, when you have setup, right? 400 setup, 400 naira per setup. How many setup do you have for standard? You multiply it by 400 naira per setup. How many setup did you have for dealers? You multiply 400 naira per what? Per setup. And that is how you will get your cost. You will first of all get the cost before you will now get the what? The unit cost. Now, let's go there. right? So we have there are two products, right? So we have, this is overhead. Let's say determination. Please, your presentation matters, please. Determination of unit what? Unit cost, right? Now, determination of unit cost. The first one, we can have, okay, we have standard and we have dealers, right? Dealers, right? So we have standard and dealers. What happened there? Okay. So we have standard and dealer. So this is, we want to determine the what? The unit cost. Now, let's go. We will start with setup. Don't forget that we have setup here in this question given to us, right? Setup, right? Setup. Now, class, if if you have if you are paying them 400 naira per setup, class, the setup is 400 naira, class. Are we there? The setup is what? Is 400 naira per setup, class. How many setup will you have for standard? Don't forget it is per set, and that is what activity-based costing want to do. Activity-based costing want to know the cost of each of the setup, right? And that is what activity, that is the reason why activity-based costing came into existence, to replace what? The absorption what costing, which is the traditional approach. So you say multiply by. So how many setup do you have? Please screenshot it if you don't have. You can see I will not be going up and down again, right? Scrolling up and down. So just screenshot this part, right? So how many numbers of what is the setup? They say it is based on numbers of setup, right? And don't forget that we unravel something here, that this is numbers of setup per batch, right? Per batch. How many numbers of batches do we calculate? We multiply to get the numbers of batches, right? Don't forget, if you have not watched the previous lecture, please do well to watch it so that you understand how we get the numbers of. Now, you can see that this is our numbers of setup. The first one is 24, and the second one is what? 1000 what? 1440. So therefore, the first one is 24 setup, right? So how much are we paying the standard? How much are we paying the standard? Please quickly, your calculator. Let's, so I will be fast. We'll move ahead, please. If I didn't, please, we must finish this question. We are done already, sir. So that we can move to CVP, please. Quickly, class, give me figure. So the second one, you can do this workings outside.
9,600 naira.
What do you have? Sorry,
9,600 naira.
I'm coming. Just hold on. Thank you for that figure. Kudus, right? Okay. So, what is the figure? Sorry, give me the figure again.
9,600 naira.
Okay, 9,600 naira. Now, you can see that this is 9,600 naira. This is the cost. It is not the rate, class. If they tell you that determination of overhead rates, let me use overhead rates because that was what they used in the question. Overhead, what? Overhead rates, class. Determination of what? Overhead rate. Rate means unit cost. Now, what you have here, class, is the total cost for setup for standard. Now, what do you have here, please? Class, what do you have? Give me figure. Figure
576,000.
576,
Thousand.
576,000. Okay. So we move to special what? Special part, right? Now, we move to special parts. Now, don't forget that it is 2 naira. Look at it, it is 2 naira per special part. The question is, what is the numbers of special part did they have in the question, right? So we'll quickly go back and check. It's based on special what? Special parts. We'll quickly go and check. Now you can see that special parts here, class, special parts here, you can see that the numbers of special parts per what? Per unit. Is that not so? And this is talking about, don't forget that special part handling, this is based on the numbers of special parts. Numbers of special what? Parts. And this is, you have numbers of special parts per unit. Definitely, when you multiply these 2 naira, these two naira per unit times what? The total numbers of what? Units. You can see times the total numbers of units, you have the numbers of special parts. Don't forget that we've done this thing. We actually explained this in our what? In our previous lecture. Numbers of special parts per unit. 1 unit will have two special parts. 1 unit. If you want to produce 2 units, if you want to produce 1 unit, you will have 2 special parts per unit. So when you are producing 24,000 units, how many numbers of special parts will you have? So you have to multiply 2 times 24 and 8 times what? 24 to have the numbers of what? Special what? Part, of which we've done that in our what? In our previous what? In our previous lecture. Let's quickly go there where we have, you can see it here, right? You can see that we multiply by this, right? So class, so you just give me figure. We don't need to go back to that part again. Just give me figure. Or I can expand this part. So I can just expand this. Okay, I'm coming. Let me just expand this part so that's okay. So we can have, it is 2 naira, right? 2 naira times 2, right? Times 24,000 units. Let me just do it like that. Please, you can do all these things outside, right? It can be your workings outside, right? So what do we have, class? Class, what do you have? Don't forget that. Okay.
96,000.
Thank you. 96,000 naira, right? 96,000. 96,000. Now, don't forget that when you multiply these 2 times 24,000 units, these two here to this part, we give you the numbers of special parts. Now this particular question is so dangerous. When you see it in exam, you look at it, ABC is simple now, but each of the course driver is a trap. If you don't understand this very well, right? Please go and watch the previous lecture where we explain about that, right? So that now the next thing we need to the next one is what? The next one is quickly. Okay, the next one is this part, right? So it is still 2 naira, right? Times, don't forget that it is 8 special numbers of special order per unit is 8. So when you want to do 24,000 units, how many numbers of special parts will you have? So you can have 8 times 8 times 24,000 what? Units. Class, what do you have here? Class, what do you have? Quickly, figure.
192,000. 192,000 naira. Yeah.
Okay, 192,000 naira. Quickly. Okay, now the next one is what? The customer. Now, class, the first question, let me quickly go back to the requirements. Sorry. Now, you can see that the question for the 10 marks says that determine the cost rate using the activity-based costing approach. So that is the C. This is all the C part up to this part, right? And the D part of this question says that what is the compute the overhead rate of each product using activity-based costing, and this is the overhead rate that we are computing, right? You can see that they attach 10 marks to this cost driver rate, and which is what we did in our last class, right? All these things right? The cost driver rate, is that not so? You can see that they attach 10 marks to it. You could see why I can attach 10 marks to it, because of question is dangerous question, right? It's very dangerous. So we can have D here. So this is your D, right? Now, and that is the overhead rate. Now, the next one is customer invoice, right? Customer invoice. Class, the next one is what? Customer what? Customer invoice, right? Who is that? Kudus.
Yes, sir. The special order under the loss is not 192, it's 384,000.
Okay. Please. Okay. Let me zoom so that you people will see it very well. Okay. Is what? Three what?
384,000.
384,000
Okay.
naira.
384. Who give me that figure? Okay. Oh. So the next one is customer what? Customer invoice, right? So now customer invoice, where is the customer invoice? Now it is based on, you can see that we added these two together, which means that they will use for standard, we use 100, right? We use 100. For dealers, we use what? 480, right? Right? We need to get the cost. Don't forget that it is 400 naira per what? Per invoice. So how many invoice did the standard have? So we have 400 naira, right? Times. So how many invoice do we have for standard? It is what? 100. You can see it here. It is what? 100. So 100. You can see that they did not attach this customer invoice. If we check the question, they didn't attach it to anything. So that is why it was very easy for us. You can see sales invoice. They just give us per year. They just say numbers of sales invoice issue per year. So they didn't attach it to unit or batches. So that is why it is very simple for us to pick like that, right? So please always watch out for all those kind of questions. So what do we have? Please multiply. What do you have? Quickly. So the next one is 400 times 480. What do you have, class?
Standard is 40,000.
Okay. Deluxe is
Then
what?
for deluxe is
192,000.
Is what?
192,000.
Okay.
192,000.
192,000. So what next do we have? We have material handling, right?
Yeah.
Material handling. Material handling, right? Material handling. So you can see the material handling here. You can see it here, right? You can see that they attach material handling to something. That is why we will multiply by 2 times 12 plus 2 times 240. Now, let me quickly just take you there where they mentioned that material handling so that you will see the reason why we multiply all those things. Don't forget that material handling here is 1,000 naira per material handling, right? 1,000 naira. 1,000 naira per material handling, right? So you can do all these workings outside. What is this? 1,000 naira, right? Times. So now let's check. What did they attach these things to? You can see material. You can see that they say it is numbers of batches. You can see it is what? Numbers of batches. Now you can see that in this part now, numbers of what? Batches. Class. The separate material handling is based on numbers of batches. Now look at it here. Where is material? You can see that separate material, numbers of separate material issued per batch. Now, per batch, one batch is 2. How many numbers of batches do we have? So that you get the numbers of what? The numbers of what? Batches for what? Material what? Separate materials or material handling. And of which that is why we multiply by, we multiply in our first, we multiply by 12. And because it is the numbers of batches, right? And we multiply by this so that you get the numbers of what? You get the numbers of numbers of material handling for the batches, right? Now, please watch the previous lecture so that you have more understanding on that, right? So you just say 2 times 2 so that we have the numbers of what? Material handling, right? So you multiply by 2, you multiply by 12, right? Of which that is what we did here. You can see it here. Now, times that, what do you have? What do you have, class?
24,000 naira.
Okay, 24,000 naira. 24,000. Okay, the next is you can see this is how you'll be apportioning it, right? You can see it is 100 naira per material handling. How many numbers of material handling do we have? You can see that is why they say they attach it to the numbers of batches. 2 times this will give you the numbers of what? Material handling. Class, please don't sleep on this, right? You can see the question like this. So make sure you practice it, right? Times 2 times 240. So what do we have?
480,000.
480,000. Thank you. Okay, the last thing is what the overhead. Don't forget that they say the overhead is based on the labor hours. That is why we multiply 4 hours per unit times 24 units, so that it will give you the total numbers of hours that you use to produce 24,000 units, right? So your overhead. Don't forget that all these things are costs until you divide it by the unit before you will now have the rate. Don't allow them to use English to confuse you. Overhead rate means unit cost of the overhead. Overhead, right? So, and it costs 4 naira per hour. 4 naira per hour, right? Times, so how many numbers of hours will they take to produce 24,000 units? Now, class, if 4 hours per unit, you use 4 hours to produce 1 unit, class. You use what? 4 hours to produce 1 unit. So when you want to produce 24,000 units, how many hours will you use? It will be 4 times 24,000 what? 4 times what? 24, 4 times 24,000 units. So you can have 4 times 24,000 units, so that it will give you the numbers of hours. Then you multiply. Class, what do you have? Please give me figure, please. What do you have?
384,000.
384,000. Thank you. Yes. So the next one is, it is still the same 4 naira, right? 4 naira times, you can see that if it takes you 5 hours per unit to produce 1 unit, right? So what will be the total numbers of hours that you will use to produce 24,000 units, which means you multiply 5 hours per unit times 24,000 units. Don't forget that in this ABC, something is always common. You can see the way we multiply all the rates, right? Now, 5 hours per unit, because of the space, that is why I didn't put the 5 hours per unit. Please, you can do all these things outside, then you bring it in. Times 24,000 what? Unit. 24,000 unit. Class, just give me figure. What do you have? I'm not supposed to do this question, complete this question, but I just have to.
480,000.
480,000. The same 480,000? Wow. 480,000. So you can see these are the costs of the overhead, right? Please, total. Give me the total of standard. So the unit produced, so that we can divide. Unit produced, right? So give me the total of standard. Someone should give me the total of standard, and someone should give me the total of dealers, so that we can move ahead, right? So this is A. This is your A.
For standard, 553,600.
Okay, thank you. For standard is
553,600.
553,600, right? So for dealers, what do you have? For dealers, what do you have? Someone else should give me the figure now. Where is Fumi? Chris, Lydia, what is happening now? You're not giving me figure. I need figure, please.
Okay, for dealers, we have 2 million.
2 million.
112,000.
2 million 112,000.
112,000. Yeah.
Okay, good. 2 million 112,000. So the unit produced for this for each of them is 24,000 units. Right? Don't forget that the question did not say we should determine profit. I didn't mean the question say we should determine profit. Don't forget the way we did. If it is ordinary sales, you do your sales minus all your both your overhead cost and your variable cost. You have your profit. But if the sales is being attached to probability, don't forget that you need to determine expected sales. Just like the way we did in our previous lecture. If the cost is being associated with probability, you determine the expected cost, whether expected variable cost or expected fixed cost, right? 24,000 what? 24,000 units. So please, A divided by B, what is the cost? What is the overhead rate per unit, class? Divide it.
For A is
Deluxe
23.07.
Okay. A divided
for
by.
deluxe we have 88 naira.
So what do you have here? Sorry. What do you have here?
23.07
23 naira 7 per unit, right? Please, your
per unit.
presentation,
Yes.
right? Your presentation matters, right? Present it this way, you earn your full marks. So what do you have here?
So for deluxe we have 88 naira per unit.
Thank you so much. God bless you. 88 naira per unit. And that is how we roll in our class, right? So, Kudus, kindly introduce yourself, right? We want to know you. Introduce yourself quickly before we move on.
Okay, my name is Kudus Afapola Raju.
Okay, where are you joining from?
Lagos State. I would like that
Okay.
to be precise.
Okay. Welcome, Kudus. Welcome to Next Gen Professional Associate, right? So, okay, and that is all about this question. Right, before we move ahead, do we have anyone that have question for me based on what we just finished just now? Please, if you have your question, and that is what the question required, right? What is the requirement of this question? Compute the overhead rate per unit of each of the products using the activity-based costing. 5 marks. You can see that Ican is so, you can see what they did, right? They set 10 marks to this part. Do you know why? Because each of the drivers, each of these drivers has something you need to do, class. Please, after this class, make sure you watch the previous lecture on activity-based costing so that you will understand how it works. Now, this is your question, question 2, and some of you have started solving sending your you can post your suggested solution to the platform. Let's see what you get, right? It's similar to what we've been doing, right? And this is it. So please ensure you practice it. Now, I didn't even know that I can set this similar question last diet. Imagine you know Next Gen Professional Associate. Now, class, our questions are not just bringing simple questions to the class to come and solve. No, we don't do that, right? We look at the areas of weakness, areas of student weakness in the last 5 years. Now, we will now combine it for, we will now add ACCA questions to it, right? You can see this question was stated last diet. Similar question. I didn't even have even sent the material before I even checked. I was like, is this question now? Imagine you know Next Gen Professional Associate. So every question in that material is what? Is very important. Make sure you attempt it and send to the platform for what? For correction. So please unmute your mic if you have any question, please.
Well done, boss.